huge dent in the box office due to restrictions, it did and has gotten positive word of mouth with critics and fans alike, even managing to take home a Best Original Screenplay Oscar. Not bad for someone's very first film experience. The film itself is a fresh and immersive take in the woman's revenge genre, as it sets itself apart by meshing pieces of a 90s-style rom-com with a character piece that examines the long-term mental health effects of sexual assault. Smartly written with its dark humor that seemingly gets under the skin as it reveals the society we live in for what it actually is. From its title and the first opening moments, we are shown typical middle-aged men dancing to a bubblegum pop track. With uncomfortable close-ups, we are shown exactly what this movie's overall mission is. Promising Young Woman is a play on the male gaze and misogyny that has been ingrained in our very DNA, in which men are looked at in higher regard than women overall. For example, when accusations arise of assault where the male is clearly at fault, the media is usually quick to display sympathy for the male side, completely disregarding how the event could derail the women's future as a whole. Its premise is a wildly different approach than what we've been accustomed to in the past. Movies like I Spit on Your Grave, Kill Bill, Columbiana, Revenge, or The Last House on the Left all have a theme in common: the violence aspect, something that this film actually shies away from. Not completely, but in comparison, it is more so about shining a light on people and giving them the opportunity to do the right thing or repent, something that is also hinted at within the cinematography, which often frames Cassie, our protagonist, as an avenging angel of sorts. What makes Promising Young Woman a game changer largely is its girly and polished tone, with pop hits, manicures, and bright color palette throughout, which leads us down the road to losing our main character Cassie and her unexpected death during her final mission and conclusion of the film. This reveal is gut-wrenching and can be a real trigger for some viewers. However, her revenge is only prolonged for a short period of time, as she had planned out her own death scenario and prepped for it.
Nice. Very nice.
So man, where should we go from here? How do you want to start?
Well, I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on this film, man? I mean, how many times have you seen it? Has it changed any at all since the first time you've seen it?
So, I think I stumbled upon the trailer randomly, and I was very intrigued. I knew it was going to be something special. Obviously, we don't see Carey Mulligan very much, as I think she is a mother of two young kids. So she's very selective with her work, and I thought that this was going to be something that's kind of out of her wheelhouse. So it made me very excited, and I checked it out based on that. And then when I realized what kind of film it was, I was like, holy shit, like, this is insane. And of course, all the people that they pick is strategic, and it totally, works for the film. I've seen it probably, like, I watched it twice for the show. So probably now like 6 or 7 times. I bought it digitally. Yeah, I just really love it. I can understand why specifically women could not care for it. With how, with where they go in the end, or how they choose to end it. And it's like, yeah, I get it. But at the same time, I feel like her getting her revenge, how do you say, like, more traditionally would have been to be expected, And as we've gotten so many of these genre films, and we've become kind of desensitized to the tropes and how they're the formula of them, that's what made me fall in love with this one more, because it's like, she got these guys back from beyond the grave, you know what I mean? Like, she outsmarted everybody.
Yeah.
And, it's really important. And then you have to think about the fact that 2 women had to essentially give their lives so that they could put like a couple of these monsters away, that they could finally be murder had to happen for the justice system to finally be like, okay, we got to lock these guys up. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's kind of questioning, like, why did Cassie have to go to these extremes? Why did Nina's life have to be stripped away and she commit suicide, for these wrongs to be, corrected in the long run. So it's just, it's very, very interesting, and there's so many layers to pull back into this. And at the same time, like I was saying in my intro, it's a pretty kind of funny film in a lot of ways, in the more lighthearted parts, specifically with like Bo.
Oh yeah, definitely.
With Bo Burnham, who's a great.
I loved his character until the end.
Yes.
Until I found out what, and that was I think intentional, to make you kind of yourself kind of like the guy, and like just like Kathy did, and you kind of get your heart ripped out after you figure out what his little part in everything, basically.
Yeah, and what I think that they're trying to do with the way they wrote that is that people who stand by and let these things happen, or how do you say, stay complacent by continuing to be friends with them. Because if you notice in the film, before she finds out what he actually did, she asks him, oh, you still she's like, oh yeah, I heard Al Monroe is back in town, and he's getting married. And he's like, oh yeah, basically like that he's keeping in contact with them, and that he's like, oh yeah, those guys aren't that bad once you actually get to know them. And that right there is like a red flag. It's a subtle one, and you kind of look past it. But when you figure out what he did, you understand, like, he's not willing to go against the grain, or to ruffle any feathers. He'd rather sit back and lie or stay complacent to cover himself, Yeah,
exactly.
Which is, it's a shame, but it's great that they pick somebody like him to kind of show that, because it's like, it's telling you, like, these bad people, in our culture, not just in Hollywood, but in our everyday life, like, these people can be your neighbor, the nicest guy, the nicest looking guy. It doesn't matter what they look like, you know what I mean? Because it's a lot of the times it's the nicest ones, the quieter ones, or the shy ones that are the worst kind of people. It's not like these cartoonish figures of what we have in films that you're like, oh yeah, that guy looks like a rapist, or that guy looks like a serial killer. Like, it's none of that, you know what I mean? It's kind of deconstructing that stereotype of, oh, this guy would never sexually assault this person or go along with something like this, you know what I mean? Because it's fucking Bo Burnham, the like sweetest looking child ever, he looks like he's 15.
Yeah.
But yeah,
one of the scenes that I really enjoyed was when Cassie, she takes her old principal's daughter, basically, and she makes her think that she kidnapped her.
Oh yes,
and that was a sweet little kind of revenge there as well, and kind of getting her the principal to kind of reevaluate her way of thinking. And she goes through it and says, like, so what if, she had a reputation for doing, whatever she used to do in high school. It doesn't matter if she came to you with a complaint or, an issue with those guys that should have been taken seriously, and the proper steps she should have went through the proper channels to take that, to kind of get that resolved. And that's part of the reason why her friend ends up, taking her life as well, because she felt unheard and unimportant. Like, why bother? Nobody cares that it happened to me, so I might as well not, live anymore. And that type of trauma, affected her that much, where she had to take her life, basically.
Yeah, and Cassie kind of touches on that because they only hint, they hint at to us as the viewers that Nina, her best friend, ended up taking her life because she couldn't deal with what had happened to her. And so when the bachelor party's happening and Cassie has Al Monroe kind of finally handcuffed to the bed, and she's telling him what's happening. She's like, yo, Nina was like top of her class, like the best of the best, and when you did what you did, you took that all away from her. She was her own person, and she just became yours. You know what I mean? Like almost like a trophy. And walking around with that shame, it was like it's she couldn't bear to live with that trauma anymore. Meanwhile, Al Monroe fucking graduates, alma mater, on track, having a great fucking life, is getting married, completely unaffected by his actions in the past, and everybody, a running theme throughout the film is like, we were just kids, as if that's an excuse.
I love how she says, if one more fucking person says that, she's like, because everyone says that. Oh, they were just kids, or we were just kids. We didn't mean anything by it, but those type of things have serious repercussions down the line, especially if it's something that bad. It doesn't really matter how old you are.
Yeah, I mean, if you could, like, even if you're a minor, if you do something that's major, they will still try you as an adult. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Depending on the crime. So it's like, the fact that everybody...
And I think that's where they were probably headed that way.
Yeah.
If the situation would have gone the other way, and it would have been, looked into. But I think because, like I said, or, like she said in the movie, that she might have had some type of reputation, or from what rumors were going around, that she had a reputation for messing around with guys, and they were probably the good guys in high school. So who would they really believe when it came down to it? Was the girl who sleeps around, or the top of the class guys? And that's a tragic reality that people deal with on a day-to-day thing. That's probably been going on since for years in reality, in the real world.
Yeah, where it's the kind of, to put it in simpler terms, the way that, like, if a guy is, how do you say, promiscuous, he's considered a player or is put on a pedestal for it. But if a woman does it, she's like gross or loose or a slut, all these negative connotations. But for a man, it's like oh yeah, he's boys will be boys type of mentality, which is obviously very toxic and plays into toxic toxic masculinity, which is this movie is so self-aware, even using the fucking Britney Spears toxic, using a cover for it when she's on her way to the bachelorette cabin house. It's like, oh man, so much of this is so stunning. I don't even know where to start.
It was so beautifully done. That cover was amazing. With it was the villains, right? Or something. Yeah, that was. I loved that. I was literally watching that scene as I texted you. So that scene was just going on. I was like, oh my god, I have to text Wes about this. This is insane. I love and it was just so creepy too, the way it was playing. And like as soon as it came on, like it went through a